Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special edition here of the CRUBCAST, a special Crub side discussion about Starfield. We have combined put about 70 hours into the game. My name is Kevin, also known as the Golden Bolt. I'm here with my good buddy Trav. Hi,
Hello,
Trav.
I am not the Trav Bolt, I am Trav Guy.
He is the Trav Bolt. That is his brand now. I have stolen his brand, and we've done the fusion dance, and it's fine. So yeah, we've played a lot of Starfield in the last couple days. Trav, you got it a couple weeks early, thanks to the folks at Bethesda. I did not, so just for the disclosures out of the way, one of us did, one of us didn't. What are your general takeaways on the game? And I should note for audio listeners, or video listeners, this is only going to YouTube rather, that this is going to be spoiler-free. We're not going to talk in detail about any major plot things. We might generally speak about the plot or side quests. But it's more of an overview. There's no gameplay on screen. It's just us. So,
Yeah.
cool. What
At
are your
worst,
thoughts?
we might spoil some side quests.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
really going to be it. My thoughts are generally positive. I went in with really low standards. I wasn't keeping up with the game's development outside of that direct from like a few months ago.
I don't even think I watched that. Like, I tuned this out completely in the hype cycle this time.
Yeah, that's fair. The only reason I didn't was because I was out of town and I'm like, I kind of want something to watch.
That's fair. Yeah.
I want to say that was like the same week that I left for TMG or kind of close for that. So it had nothing to do, watched it, and was like, oh yeah, that seems fun. And then I got it, and it's about exactly what I thought it was going to be. Didn't really have any higher expectations than that. And I think that because of that, I think it's probably the most fun I've had with a Bethesda RPG since New Vegas. I could say that much.
And even that's like a technically Bethesda one. Like, there's going to be a lot of Outer Worlds comparisons that I'm going to make in this video. I forget, did you play a lot of Outer Worlds, Trav?
Not really.
Okay.
It seemed cool. I didn't really bother with it, and by playing this, I'm like, well, now I really don't feel like I need to play Outer Worlds.
So,
But maybe I'll change my mind. I don't know.
So I will say Outer Worlds was one of my games of the year for 2019 because I loved Fallout New Vegas. And so getting more of that, even in a package that...
Oh, wait, Outer Worlds. I'm sorry. I was
thinking of Outer
confusing
Wilds?
that with No Man's Sky.
Oh, okay.
No,
Okay,
that's
different.
what my brain was imagining. I
Got you.
didn't even process the name.
I thought you played
Okay,
more Outer
no,
Worlds than me.
I did play quite a bit of
Yeah.
Outer Worlds.
Okay.
Outer Worlds, yes.
Cool. There will be No Man's Sky comparisons as well. Starfield's a weird game. And I really I think I enjoy my time with it, but I still can't tell. Like, I've put like 40 hours into it or 30 hours into it or something like that. And I've really had a lot of fun just doing all of the little checklisty things. And I got really engrossed into the main quest for like 10 minutes. And then I realized I was at the end. And so the stuff that I thought was the beginning of like a much later sequence of the game, again, no spoilers, was not. So similar to Outer Worlds, I got Outer Worlds where that game kind of ended in Act 2. Starfield could have had two really, really great acts after the plot points that I'm referring to. And then it doesn't. And it kind of just rushed to, I'm near the end now. Like, I saw how many quests I have left in the main quest. I'm pretty much done. And I don't want to finish it. A, because I'm having fun. And B, because I don't know that I like what they are trying to do with the story, but they don't ever tell you what they're doing with it until like 2/3 of the way through. And I know you avoided the story for your review because Bethesda said, hey, don't spoil these things here or there.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what your takeaway is on that, because I know we were talking about it a little bit, and then yesterday you just told me before we started recording that you started doing more of the story and you got to the part that, not that I'm referring to, but you got to that chunk of the game.
I got to the first of, I guess I'll just call them landmarks, I guess, that I'm assuming are going to become a pretty common thing that I find throughout the game, where you go in, you do this like a little free-floating mini game. I guess I'm not even entirely sure what I did. It felt like I didn't do anything.
Yeah, that's weird. It's a thing that they just have.
Yeah,
there.
I don't know what
get
that's
it.
about. Where like you just move up to this jumble of spinning stars, and then maybe something happens. I wasn't entirely sure.
Yeah, you just kind of do stuff and then space happens, and that's genuinely the best description I can give without spoiling it. Even with spoiling it, actually, I don't think we could spoil that well. But
I mean, I have no idea how to even address that.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was a point that kind of hit me last night where I touch down on this planet or moon or something just to explore and get some resources for crafting. That I'm like, I've been here before. I've done a lot of this already, where I just touch
Yeah.
down, scan my environment, look for a cave over yonder, and then pull out my scanner, start mining stuff that I see along the floor, and then that's it. And then you make it to the place. Maybe there's enemies there, maybe not.
Mostly
And
human
then it like,
enemies.
yeah, at worst you're gonna get some like funny looking ground octopus or isopod or something.
Ground Octopus was my favorite Mega Man boss, by the way.
It's true.
Yeah.
You can he's weak to the armadillo. Totally forgot where I was going with that point. I already forgot what your question
So
was.
you got to as far as general gameplay goes, you've now hit that point, and I think you said you're 37 hours in.
Yes, I
So
have 37 hours logged.
so you've hit the point where you're like, oh, this is the game now. This is the loop.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess credit where it's due. I hit that point well after I did hours-wise after Skyrim.
That's fair. That's fair.
I'm not sure how much of a compliment that is, but
I don't want us to come off as like lukewarm on the game or negative. Like, I think I'm closer to lukewarm. I know you really have enjoyed your time up to this point, and I have too. My hiccup, for those that maybe are unfamiliar with us here at the CRUBCAST, is that because I've loved Bethesda games for so long, I got burned by Fallout 4. That game didn't do anything for me, I realized 40 hours in. This one, I went in not expecting it to do anything for me. And so because I had middling expectations, I really am enjoying it, but I don't know that I would call it a stellar, pardon the pun, experience in its own right. I think it's a good game. I don't think it's like a stellar game, but it doesn't need to be. I'm just sad that I now think of Bethesda RPGs as, oh yeah, they're good. Because those games were a huge part of my teen years. Like, I put, hundreds of hours into Fallout 3, hundreds more into New Vegas, hundreds into Oblivion even. I never really touched Skyrim.
wow.
Because by that point, I had burned myself out on the Bethesda RPGs, all in the span of, 2 years at that point. And I don't know. This is a game that, for the audience that it is aimed at, which is the folks that have put thousands of hours into Skyrim, this is an infinite game. Just about. Like, you're not going to run out of things to do. Whether you enjoy them, I think, is going to be my takeaway as to how much you'll get out of the game. Because there's a lot of really cool areas. Like, I've only found 4 or 5 towns, which was also kind of disappointing.
Yeah, that's not a lot.
I think I've found all of them at this point. I've done a lot of the... I'm not all of them. I've probably missed 1 or 2. Because I found each of the faction towns, because there's 3 main factions in the game. I haven't found any of the religious side quest stuff, but there's a whole religious element that there is in the game that I haven't even touched. I know we went on very different paths, Trav. So you did the undercover pirate quest as a lot of your game time, right?
Yeah, I would say most of my time spent in quests has been with that. And it's still freaking going. I was playing more of it today, and there's more to do, which is wild to me. There's this...
Yeah.
This could have probably been the whole main quest at this point, with how long it is.
Sorry, I think we froze up there on Discord. Say that last part again?
No, you're good. I really feel like they could have... this is long enough to almost fill a main quest with how long this pirate quest is. And
I believe that.
It's wild. And it's a fun quest. I'm enjoying it. And I feel like that's just kind of an extension of where Bethesda is with their quests, where they put a lot of thought into these side quests and factions that have little to nothing to do with the main story.
Yeah.
And and then there's just a point where that ends, and I'm like, okay, well, what do I do now?
And so that's kind of my takeaway as well now. So I did the Ranger quest just last night, and I did it all in 1 night, to be fair. But it was a substantial quest. It was 5, 6, 7 hours, not counting all of the infinite quests that they give you, where there's mission boards in this game. So each group has mission boards where you can be a bounty hunter, you can be a pirate, you can be a space marine, you can be a ranger, and they're all, randomly generated radiant quests out of Skyrim. And that's sort of that infinite content thing I was referring to. But the main quest for that one, I was really enjoying it. I liked the traveling detective story that the one ranger quest has, but there's only one. Like, it's one long quest with a bunch of forks in it. And that's not a bad thing, but I think back to, like, the Thieves Guild in Oblivion, for example, where that quest goes, at least in my memory, a really, really long time and has a bunch of, like, twists and turns and forking side quests within it so that you keep doing it and you keep growing in that group. I don't think, as far as I have found, I think I'm done with the Ranger quest. They gave me a ship, and it's a really nice ship, actually, and that's it. I'm just a Ranger now. And that's not a bad thing, but there's that element of what now, like you said.
Yeah.
And all of these experiences feel completely different, which is a huge credit to Bethesda, because that's one of my issues with Fallout 4 and a lot of their games in general, is that the choices you make don't tend to matter faction-wise. These feel substantially different in vibe from one another, I think.
Yeah.
And the towns do, too. Like, there's a town called Neon, which is like a super capitalist fishing town owned by a corporation. And
yeah, like super cyberpunk-esque.
Yes. Yeah, like 3 tiers of, like, society type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoyed going through that town. And I did, like, every quest I could find in that town. Like, there was a whole chunk of time that I just spent in that town for, like, a day. And I really, really had a lot of fun with it. And then there was a point that I realized that it gave me a lot of Outer Worlds vibes, but that where Outer Worlds has that, like, charming, sarcastic commentary on everything space capitalism, they don't ever try that with Starfield. Yeah. It just kind of is like, yeah, this is space. We're just kind of humans. And that's kind of, I guess, fresh, but it feels maybe a little sanitized almost.
I went on a big tangent about that in my video. I'll keep it short here. But just like, you know, the origin of cyberpunk and steampunk kind of stem from that anti-authoritarian bullshit. We might have to censor that. Sorry.
No, we're good. On YouTube.
And then, so I was just like, yeah, calling this game NASA punk, like, you know, what is that? Like, are we sanitizing the term punk to just be an aesthetic? Which, let's face it, the answer is yes, it has been. That's kind of my whole point of that argument in my video.
Yeah.
But also, that also extends to the gameplay, where there's so much room for social commentary, I guess, that it feels like someone there was trying to make, but then either didn't think it through or was advised to not keep going with that, because there's a lot of it. Like, did you get into the did you ever make it to the well in New Atlantis?
That's a section I haven't done, so I don't really like New Atlantis that much in layout. So
that's fair. I didn't until I got to the well.
I've been down there for one main quest where they take you through it, and I liked the aesthetic of it, but I haven't done any quests there.
Yeah, like there's some really good side quests there that kind of just shed some light on how these people have adapted to this life literally under the city. And there's some really good character moments with some of the people there. But it's just like, I wanted to see them go further with it, because it did feel very sanitized. It's like, oh, okay, you kind of need to resolve this, or else there's something interrupting it. I'm trying to keep it a little vague.
I got you. Yeah.
I don't know the right term, but
I think so. That kind of goes back to, again, vaguely here, my issues with the main quest. And I don't want us to just be dunking on the game, because I don't think that's what either of our takeaways are. No. I think my general takeaway, and I don't want to speak for you, Trev, but I feel like you agree here, is that this game is very good. And then it's like, what if they took that extra step? Like, what if they didn't hold back on some narrative beats? Because there are points later in the story where they go for some really interesting, like, questions that I'm like, this is what I've been waiting for. This is what you've been setting up the whole game. But it's literally the 11th hour. It is the last thing that you do in the main story. And there's so many fascinating questions, and I've had companions, like, give me commentary on the main quest and, like, you know, your character's objective. And it's like, man, I don't want to finish the story, because now there are characters in my party saying, don't finish the story.
Yeah.
And that's such an interesting thing. And I know I'm going to at some point, But it's just I don't know. I'm conflicted because I can see where this could have been like the Fallout 3 of this generation, where that game just takes the world by storm. And Tears of the Kingdom is going to be game of the year this year, no matter what. Like, that's going to win. But this
at
could
least
have,
for me, it is. Yeah.
like in terms of general consensus, I should say. But also my takeaway. But this could have given it a run for its money, and it's, for whatever reason, they kind of played it safe, which is weird. Like, there's a lot of stuff, like, even in the traveling. So you can land on any planet, pretty much any part of any planet, and it will procedurally generate an area for you to put a mining outpost or whatever, like a Fallout outpost. I haven't engaged with that mechanic too much so far, but I also don't see a huge reason to at this point, personally, because... I'm near the end of the game. I've done a lot of the side stuff already. Like, there's only so many side quests that actually have substance in this game. So I think that this is probably a 70 to 80 hour game to do functionally everything. I genuinely think that, based on how I've played so far.
Until the stuff starts repeating and all that.
Yeah.
I've already found, it's only happened once so far, but I've already found one of those, like, I call them dungeons, but they're, here's a cave you enter, and then it has like this whole side quest inside of it, its own story. I've already found one that repeated itself on a different planet.
Yeah.
So
a lot of space battles that loop. A lot of really cool stuff too. Like going back to that character thing where your companions comment on stuff. We were talking about this a couple days ago, about how it does the same thing that Outer Worlds does, where there are characters that will, like, your companion will comment directly on the conversation you're having with another character. And in Outer Worlds, they never acknowledge that person. In this game, they almost never acknowledge that person. But now I've started seeing moments where they do, and I'm like, oh, that's so, like, that's what I want. Like, the dialogue from your companions is so good. Like, yes, some of it's kind of generic or general, but they have a good take on every situation that fits their character. And I really, really like that, because in a game this grand in scope, and in a game that doesn't really, like, touch on morals too much, they're the only moral compass you have. Because stealing's not considered wrong to any companion, as far as I know.
I've
you can
stolen
steal
in front of just about all my companions I've had so far.
And, like, they'll be like, you can steal, I don't judge that, but if you kill somebody that's, like, a good guy, then we might have a problem.
I found some, just building off of that before you finish your point. Yeah. I was earlier today, I was doing more of the pirate quest, and one of my companions that was with me, and I quick saved and loaded just to see what would happen. But there was just a point with this where I had to approach a person, and my companion has been, like, totally fine with being an undercover pirate. Like, they're commenting on everything and all that, and, like, directly using dialogue made for this quest, I should say. Mm-hmm. So it's like, okay, they clearly intended for me, or at least planned ahead to have me bring this character with me. And they're commenting on everything. They're like, yeah, I mean, I don't like being an undercover pirate, but it's, it's for a good cause. But there's just this point where, I guess because of a couple things that led me to where I am specifically in the quest that I might have been able to get around, every dialogue choice I had with this part of the quest was making the character dislike me.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, I would reload it, try a different option, and I'm just like, no, for whatever reason, this path I took, they're going like, well, okay, this might be a little too far. And, like, they would have a dedicated line, like, it would pan back over to them and they'd say something kind of reprimanding, and I'm like, that's interesting to me that they would put you in a scenario like that, given how for the rest of it, it's just like, the game isn't afraid to let you be a jack of all trades and be okay at everything. So I like that they were able to just put their foot down and be like, no, your companion doesn't like it if you keep doing this.
Yeah.
No matter what you choose.
And on that front, so one of my companions was, like, I just picked one of the companions and said, you're going to be with me the game. Like, this is my companion for the main story. And that ended up turning into my protagonist's, like, romance option. And it was really funny because this is the only bug I've really ran into of substance so far in this game. There's been two. One was this, where the character professes their love for the protagonist, and then immediately afterwards they're like, don't fucking talk to me. I remember that. Like, there was something that I had done prior, or now that I've looked back, I think it was the story beat that had just happened in the main story. They weren't mad at me. They were sad in general at a story beat.
Yeah.
But they were treating it like, I'm not going to answer your questions. I'm angry that you are talking to me right now. The moment that they're like, let's get married. And I'm like, what the fuck? What? So that was one of the 2 bugs I had. And then there was another where I did you do the Red Mile? No, you wouldn't have. That's a ranger quest. There's a quest called the Red Mile.
I still have the quest that's like join the Rangers.
Okay.
So I haven't touched that yet.
The Red Mile's cool. It's like you run a literal mile through like a hillside, and you fight a bunch of creatures along the way. And it's like this dystopian, like, people bet on whether you're going to make it or not type thing.
Oh, okay.
And it's a cool little quest. And so right after that quest, I got back in, and I'm doing like the dialogue with whoever. And then 2 more of the creatures that I guess I didn't kill during the last chunk of the Red Mile came and started fighting outside the front door. So then everyone in this casino just pulls out their gun in the middle of dialogue, and I like had to reload because I accidentally shot one of them, I guess. Or I had an electric gun, so the arc of the electricity hit one of the guards, and then everyone starts shooting at me, and I'm like, what the fuck did I do?
That's
so I had to reload and like make sure I ran immediately to the front door and killed them before I talked to anybody. But otherwise, I haven't run into that many bugs, like outside of physicsy things.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've had my fair share of physics bugs. I had a couple people just clip through a desk in front of them. But, like, nothing game-breaking, especially compared... Like, I've only had the game crash on me about 3 times
I've had 1 crash.
Which is a bit more than before. Like, literally, just immediately after I finished my video on it, after I said, yeah, the game's only crashed once on me, like, within an hour it crashed twice. But then that's it.
I don't think I've had any crashes.
Major.
Like,
I really don't think that they were lying when they said that this is their most bug-free game.
No, they did a really, really good job, and I want to give them credit where it's due, because, I don't want us to come off as just negative on this game, because I think this would be like a runner-up for my current game of the year. It's just that you know what you're getting into now, I guess is the thing. But, like, optimization-wise, like, the only thing I can say is if you're on PC... I made the dumb mistake of, I don't have a lot of space on my solid-state drive right now. Let me put it on my hard drive. Don't do that.
Oh, God.
That does not work well. I made that mistake and didn't think about it, and so the game ran really choppy for a while. And then as soon as I moved it to my solid-state drive, I never had an issue again. Game loads fast for me, given we both have high-end PCs, so we can't speak to, like, the general PC user experience.
Yeah.
But I will say your experience is going to be marred a little bit by, until you get used to the really bad menus, you are going to have a bad time. I hate the maps. I hate everything about all the maps. I hate the star maps. I hate the regular maps. I hate that there's no, like, Ratchet and Clank styled, here's every fucking planet that is of note. You can't favorite planets to be like, I want to go there. You have to remember the star system that the planet is in. Go into your map. And when I say go into your map, it'll do like your planet map first. Then it'll do the zoomed out, here's the map of the planet. Then it'll zoom out again and do a here's the system. Then it will zoom out to the star system. And then you have to scroll around this big-ass empty piece of space map. And
unless there's something I totally missed, it does not tell you what planets are in a system by
until
hovering
you go
over
in.
it.
Yep, until you go in.
So you might not even remember. Like, the only reason I remember a couple of them is just because, like, I made myself remember Borderline, like, with flashcards.
Yep.
So I could just remember what planets were where. Because, like, I don't remember what's in Alpha Centauri, but I have to go there for some reason. I know that there's a city there, and then I open it up, and I'm just like, all right, well, which planet was it? And it's just a weird system. I don't know what they were thinking. Like, okay, I don't really care too much about there being loading zones in between going from planets to landing. I know a lot of people are upset about that.
It's not ideal, but what are you going to do? They're procedurally loading stuff. What are you going to do? Like, and they're not long loads. Like, the loads into and outside of doors are instant just about. Again, given on our PCs, but I'm assuming it's the same on series.
Your mileage may vary.
Yeah.
But like, I genuinely don't care all that much. I figured out pretty early on that if you're in space and you just aim your ship at the waypoint and press, I don't know what it would be on controller, but
it's
for
A
keyboard,
on controller, I think, and then X will be the go button.
Yeah, like, you could just go to the waypoint you're pointing at. You don't have to open the map. That's nice. Sometimes it'll just open the map for you, but it'll take you to where you need to go. Like, there's little things like that that are like, 1 second. I'll
Yeah,
get to
sorry.
that in
Go
just
ahead.
a
Sorry.
moment.
Go ahead.
No, I'm building off of your thoughts of how fucking terrible the UI is. Because every time, like, you want to go somewhere, open your map, zoom out, think maybe this is the planet I want to go to, but I don't know right now. And God forbid you have crap, what are they called? A place you built, whatever. I'm forgetting
Outpost.
the term. Outpost, thank you. God forbid you have an outpost on a planet that has a mine set up there to gather resources.
Oh, does that
'cause
do the
I
same
already
marker
forgot.
on the little icon? Because some
I
planets
think
have
it has
icons.
a unique marker.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a marker for cities or like any place that has a population,
Yeah.
but that can range anywhere from New Atlantis, Aquila City, to a
Random
civilian
outpost,
outpost on Europa. And it's like, well, okay, I don't know which one I need.
And it does
There's
that in
so
the
much.
galaxy map. So like when you're looking
Yeah.
at the systems, it'll show you this like the star system you're looking at, and it'll be like, oh, this one has people, and it's like, okay, but like, why do most of them not have people? Like, for one, like we're in this super futuristic thing where every planet's been colonized, and there's not a lot of planets that have anything on them. Like the most you're gonna find when you're doing mining or surveying is like, oh, there's 7 plants and there's 6 species of animals on this entire
I
planet.
love that. You were pointing that out last night. I'm like, oh my god, I never thought of that. Like,
like
how
5
come
types of rock
there's only
ever.
there's only like 5 species of anything on this planet. That's so funny.
It's not, and that's not a genuine dig. It's just kind of like, man, when you really think about it, that's fine.
I get it from like a system limitation because
Totally.
approaching it as a video game, I'm like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Of course, like here's 5 things I need to record for this planet. All right, let's move on. And then you're like, well, hold on, like why would there only be 5 animals species on this planet? Like, oh yeah, that's a good point.
There's a whole clinic that is like talking about immunovirology, where they're like, every planet has pathogens that we don't know about, and we have to like get ahead of them. And as far as I can tell, there's not an actual quest involving them. It's just a place. Like, there's quests that like the Ranger quest has you go there. But that's such a fascinating idea that is a genuine concern, is if we start colonizing other worlds, what if there's super pneumonia that spawns from a super bacteria or something?
That's literally a plot point in War of the Worlds, if I remember.
Yeah. And so for them not to use that outside of, like, your character can get, like, lung damage, and then you just inhale things and you're healthy again.
Yeah,
like it's really
if you
funny.
sit in a chlorine pond for too long, you might get lung damage, which is like the status effects are really silly to me.
Yeah, I like them though.
I think
favorite
that they
is
work
pain.
from a gameplay perspective.
It just says
yeah,
pain.
oh my
Like,
god, I
it's-
got that one yesterday.
It's so
just
good.
over the status bar, pain or cough. Like, all right, yeah, well, just escaped COVID. It came back.
Space COVID.
So. What were you wanted to talk about space?
So,
what
as
was
an
your jumping off
extension
point there?
of the menus, I did not like space at first. And it wasn't like a skill issue or like a learning to adapt to the systems. If anyone has played the most recent Lego Star Wars game, the space is that. Like, when you go to planets in Lego Star Wars, you go to a planet, and then it's like, you don't actually fly to the planet. You're just like in a sphere of dedicated space that might have some asteroids that don't damage you if you hit them, or anything of that sort. And
sorry, might have to cut that sound out.
no, keep it in. I'll go pop another drink right now.
Okay.
Like, it's just this sphere of space that you're flying around in. There might be like enemy ships, or you might get hailed by a ship that you helped on a quest, and they're like, "Oh, thanks for earlier. Here's an item." Which again, that stuff's cool. I really like those callbacks that they give you. But you don't fly specifically to the planet. You can never specifically fly to the planet. You'll always be X distance away from it. Like, there's a wall. And
Actually, well, I do have an update on that. It's really trivial.
Okay.
I'll let you finish your point if you want.
No, go.
Just real quick, it was I saw it pop up in my feed today. Someone spent apparently you are moving towards this planet, and it is a large enough and far away enough from you that it is significant. Like, someone had their thrusters up all the way. It took them 7 hours in game to reach the planet. So like, there is something there. Except once they hit the planet, they just clipped through it and there's nothing there.
Never mind. Like, because I would get that in terms of scope of space. Like, that's totally fair.
Yeah.
But like, each of these systems, like, there's not a huge reason for the space element to exist when you're talking about going from planet to planet. Because most of what you're going to do, instead of flying from place to place, is set your mission marker, go to the mission thing in the big sphere menu on the pause screen, press X, it'll automatically tell you, do you want to fast travel to that system? And hopefully you have the right pathway through the stars to get there. Otherwise, you gotta like do some dumb shit where you gotta like jump to this one and then manually jump to each one, which is annoying because it's all load screens. There's a lot of where the menus would replace you flying through space. But I love the space combat for what it is. It's not very good, but I love it. I love being able to board enemy ships, like disable enemy ships, like that. When you told me about that, I immediately added that skill to my thing.
Yeah.
And started like boarding ships and doing these micro dungeons of taking down pirates and shit. And that was so cool. Like I really enjoyed that stuff.
It is really cool. The part that I unless you had another.
No. That was just I was filming.
The big thing that I didn't love about it was that I had no reason to really care about upgrading my ship until I stumbled upon, it was in like an SOS side quest, you might have done it, where you have to help these like 4 families turn their satellites back on.
Yes.
It's just like going to random, like, first off, how did they, get these satellites, whatever. That was, I don't know why that was a huge point of contention for me. It's like, all right, you have this satellite up in Venus, and then there's one up at Alpha Centauri, whatever. But then, like, by the time I get there, these ships are way above my normal level, and I've just been doing basic upgrades to my ship. I didn't really bother too much with customizing. And it wasn't until I hit that point, and I was just getting filtered hard by these space pirates, that I'm like, all right, I'll learn how to upgrade my stuff. And by the time I figured it out, I was like, oh, okay, this is actually pretty cool. Making sure that my ship, or everything on my ship is, the same class, so it's all compatible. But then also trying to expand my ship enough to get these new workstations and everything, so I don't have to worry about leaving my ship. But I also just kind of brute forced it, where I put what's basically just like some scaffolding on the top of my ship, strapped a ton of guns to it that do equal damage to the hull and the shield. And so now I don't really bother about changing my weapons. I just left click and I win.
Yep.
So
I only just used my second ship for the first time. Like I used the Frontier the entire story. I upgraded it.
Yeah.
But I didn't jump super hard into that stuff because I looked at it. I upgraded like some of the base stats, and I engaged with that system enough that I was like, I'm enjoying this, but I can tell, and this I think is maybe the tell that I have for this game, is there's so much love being put into the people that want to explore this stuff more deeply. There are options, but there's no built-in game reason for them. Like this is, if this was Fallout 3, I want to see Obsidian make the New Vegas to this game, if that makes sense. And I don't mean Outer Worlds 2. I mean like Starfield's game system, but in a game that has a more substantial storyline and has more to it than a lot of empty planets.
That's one thing that I wanted to raise as a question for some totally trivial hypothetical. Because we saw it with No Man's Sky, where that game just kind of came back with this big update and fixed a lot of the issues. And we're about to see it again with Cyberpunk. The big 2.0 update is about to hit. That's changing. Yeah, like it's a free update that changes the base game. Like at this point, I could see something like that happening for Starfield. At least when it comes to like overhaul with the mechanics of the game. Maybe not so much for the story, which isn't to doesn't really address your point. But I have a hard time seeing them not updating this in some capacity down the line. I mean, God forbid, like a Skyrim special edition sort of thing. But I can see them doing it.
Well, actually, I don't know that I think that'll happen now because they're not selling these games anymore. So there's no profit incentive to make a whole new game because it's just $10 a month.
Game Pass, that's it. I was trying to remember like what is it called?
So that's an interesting wrinkle in this whole scenario now. Is whether they would have the financial incentive, especially now. Like there were some reports that came out that the royalty payouts for indie developers for Game Pass and PS Plus Premium are getting lower. So the shoe is already dropping in the same way that it did with like, Netflix and streaming, where the residuals aren't coming back for these companies as much, which obviously Bethesda's an in-house studio for Microsoft now. But does that mean that we're now seeing the wallet tighten And if that does,
Yeah.
what does that mean for the future of a Starfield? I'm sure it'll get DLC. I'm sure it's going to get significant updates. I don't know that those address the core issues, though, because there's only so many types of space station that you go to. Like, I've seen the same, like, it's like Fallout micro dungeons or like Elder Scrolls caves. There are so many prefabs that they put together, and at a certain point, you know what to look for on all of them. And that's not a bad thing. There's nothing you can do to avoid that. But I'm surprised that 33 hours in, I think I'm officially at, I've already seen that, despite avoiding a lot of the side content, because I knew that stuff would do that. And it's interesting because, again, I don't want to touch on the main story, but it goes back, like, the main story assumes that you're doing a lot more side content because there are, like, significant plot points that they expect you to be more attached to the story by that point by way of the side content. That there's, like, a whole 30-minute quest that's just kind of dialogue, and it's like you talking to your crew, and it's like, oh, that's really cool. But then I realized, oh, they expected you to do this like 150 hours in because, like, they don't want you to do the main story right away, because at a certain point the main story becomes it becomes those towers for, like, several quests, and then by boom, game's almost over. But I will say, one thing that I think we're both in agreement on is this is the best that any Bethesda game's ever felt mechanically.
Yes.
The gunplay is very fun. The AI is stupid as shit, but the gunplay is very fun. Like, I was streaming it to
the
Justin.
AI feels a bit smarter than it did in Fallout 4. I can say that much.
Maybe the human AI. I think the creature. The creature AI is the same
stupid
level. Actually, I think the creatures are smarter than the humans. I'm not gonna lie, because I had, like, this praying mantis that was, like, doing side steps and shit against me.
Weird.
But the humans, like, I'm playing on normal, so I'm not playing on a super hard difficulty because I don't personally care enough at this point about these games to challenge myself further. I'm here for fun, you know. But I don't think that making it harder would increase the AI. It never has. It's just increased the health sliders.
Yeah.
But I went through one of those.
Actually, so just to jut in.
Yeah.
I went in the game on hard.
Okay.
Just because I'm like, yeah, why not? It does tell you that the higher difficulty you choose, the more rare loot you get. So
that makes sense. I've gotten a lot of rare
falls
loot
into the
on
same,
normal.
like, not Borderlands. I don't remember what game it was that recently gave me this opinion, where it's like you play on a harder difficulty, but you get better loot, and as a result, the difficulty just levels out again because you're able to match.
And one of the first things I killed gave me a legendary gun. So even then, like,
you find rare shit in the first dungeon.
Yeah. But I was streaming a random lunar base to Justin last night to show him what I was talking about with this stuff. And I walked through, and given I was a little over leveled, like, I'm like level 30 something right now. I'm fighting like level 20 enemies. So they should not be pushovers. But I just was, like, jumping through and just standing directly in their face, shooting them in the face at point blank. And they would just stand there, or they would run away and then, like, hide, but they can still, they can use cover, but they don't. You can't use cover, but actually that's it. You just can't. Like, you'll get shot through cover.
They're way more bullet spongy than previous games, I guess.
And
at least it feels that way.
And that's not a bad thing. It's just kind of this is a game that you should be expecting that your brain's going to go off for, which I don't think was always the case. Like, I thought about combat a lot in the Fallout games because it was bad, so you had to, like, be better about how you planned around things, because things would just wreck your shit. But here,
also VATS.
But here, I just kind of go in, brain off, guns blazing, and kill everything, and it's easy. And that's fine, because, like, this game is a power fantasy game at the end of the day. Like, you're exploring
It's a power
these planets.
fantasy checklist game, which is exactly what I was hoping it would be. But I still have my criticisms. I'm not trying to say like, whatever.
No. I think it's fair, because a lot of what people are looking for out of this game, I think, is that. I think people have understood that Bethesda games are not going to change. They are what they are, and I'm personally much more accepting of that than I would have been after Fallout 4, because I was very bitter after Fallout 4. That game hurt me.
I don't blame you.
But
Fallout 4 was... I guess I didn't have more to that thought. It's not good. I put a lot of hours into it. I thought I liked it for a while. Came back to Fallout 4 like 2 or 3 years ago, and I'm like, oh, what the hell?
I love the areas. I love what it tried to do, but then it just doesn't end up being satisfying. And here... to its credit, there are, like, narrative choices you make in side quests and main quests that given they don't have an impact, but I kind of respect that more than them pretending they do.
Yeah.
You know, like there are no long-reaching
really
consequences to anything you do.
I like that they kind of mattered on a personal level with like some of the NPCs.
Yes,
and that's the part that I really liked about Starfield.
I really, really enjoyed that. And I won't say it doesn't matter in general, because if you go and kill a bunch of, UC Marines, you're going to have a bounty on your head. Also, what's weird is if you go, like, I had a bounty on my head, and I went to New Atlantis, and no one ran up to me this time and said, "Oh, you have a bounty, come pay it." They just started shooting at me.
Oh, really?
That was fun.
Oh, wow.
So I had to reload a save because I couldn't get off planet because it wouldn't let me fast travel. So I had to go to Aquila City, the Ranger City, for those that aren't familiar, which is a different faction. Had to go there, pay my bounty off there, then come back. And there's stuff like that with like contraband loot and stuff like that. And like there's a lot of really cool systems, but I'm already like I have 300,000 credits. Like I'm overpowered.
Yeah. 100%.
Just from main story, and I didn't think it was going to be this quick. Like it's the same exact time frame that I tuned out of Fallout 4. I don't think I will tune out of this game as quickly, but it's because I'm ready for it.
Yeah. Building just real quick off that point. I have way more credits than I know what to do with, and also I don't even have the bribery perk, but I'm able to pay my way out of so many situations right now.
I refuse.
Like, and I'm tempted to just buy that perk just to see what more I can do to just buy off the rest of the game.
Yeah. And thank God the dialogue is so much better in this game than
my God,
maybe any other Bethesda game.
Like, I think it's
Bethesda
the best
developed game.
Yeah. Like it's not better than New Vegas, but it's better than Fallout 3 and Skyrim.
Yeah, like the only
and 4, but that's out of the question in my opinion.
The only thing I wish for is, again, I like there's so many like smaller issues that don't matter to anybody but us. That I'm like, you are owned by the same company that developed Outer Worlds now, and this game was in development for 4 more years than Outer Worlds was. How did you fall into the same pitfalls of certain companion hiccups in terms of dialogue, certain things like that? How did you fall into letting this, hyper-capitalist ecosystem just go unconfronted? Like, there's no space communists. There are space Jehovah's Witnesses, but they're nice to you. Like they just kind of like.
I still haven't found them.
They just showed. I was fast traveling, and they showed up and said, "Hey, space god's cool," and I'm like, "Hey, thanks." And that was it. And I was like, "Cool, whatever."
I did find a tour group that tried to interview me.
Yes, I gave them sexual advances.
Oh yeah, me too. The other thing was like the part that cracked me up was like I just mentioned like I think that we should all be working together to make space as good as it can be. And one of them with a southern accent comes up is like, "You mean paying more taxes?"
Yep, it was the exact
I'm like,
one
all right,
for
that's
me.
funny.
Like that's
but
good.
that goes back to my original point from the beginning of this whole sidecast where I'm like they don't go far enough with that.
Yeah,
I want to see more
content.
Political discourse,
and it doesn't even need to be like deep. It's just that when you were the developers of Fallout, you know what you're getting into. Like Fallout was always about making fun of American exceptionalism. Making fun of...
Liberty Prime is the embodiment of that whole idea.
And they did such a good job at that, and also made you feel like melancholy, or not melancholy, but feel a sense of like, man, it's a shame this happened. Like you feel bad for the people of old that it happened. In Starfield, there's not really any of that, because you'll go to like some old outpost and there's like corpses that are 400 years old but not decayed because I guess space, and you're just like, oh shit, whatever. Like,
damn.
Thanks for the credits. They still spend. One of the coolest quests, and I think maybe I'll end what I want to say on this with this, and I'm sure for those that are interested, Moriarty and Chris have not played the game yet. They're waiting for the official launch in 2 days. I'm sure when they get through the game, we will be back with a more spoiler discussion for this game, because there's a lot I want to talk about. I think it goes in some really interesting directions, just not far enough. But one of the quests that I just got was, have you been to Paradiso yet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I have.
So if you go towards Paradiso, there's a quest where you get a hail from a random ship that can't communicate with you. It's a generation ship.
I have done that,
that left Earth. So it's in this world you have like super grav drives that you can just jump between. You do warp speed type stuff. And
FTL
yes,
engines bullshit.
instantly
kind of
able to colonize planets somehow type stuff. And it's fine. They explain it. It works. It's cool. But there were also ships that used regular propellant type propulsion systems. And so there are generation ships where hundreds of years later, they finally get to their destination and they find out it's been colonized because they left before grav drives were invented. And so it's like, oh, that's really interesting because now you have this actually down below, this hyper capitalist. It's like a vacation area, like a beach city.
Yeah.
And
it's like this 5-star resort, and
Yeah.
you got to negotiate everything. And I'm coming at it. I'm still early in the game. I'm wondering how you achieve or
there's no
beat
good
this
ending
quest,
to that
but,
one. There's like 3
no,
options.
there really isn't. Because what I ended up doing was I got them set up with a new grav drive so they could escape.
That's the only good option because you can either do that or there's no persuasion option. The CEO, so it's also a lot of these planets are run by CEOs, just like Outer Worlds, but here you don't get to confront them as much. Which again is like, that's kind of frustrating. Like they had it right there. If you just did that,
I wish I could tell this guy off, but literally the best option was, all right, I'll just help them.
It's either that or
else.
they land and they get enslaved as indentured servants for hundreds of years, or you kill them, the spaceship. You blow the ship up. So it's like there's no good option other than send them to another planet and hope they turn out okay. And it'd be cool to see them building that planet. I don't know if you do later on in life. I hope you do. That you can see them like building their settlement.
I was gonna ask if your quest is bugged there, because I meant to bring that up earlier. I totally forgot. So I finished the quest, and now I just have this permanent quest marker that I can do. That's like check up on the UC whatever, not UC.
Oh, that's
whatever
cool.
It is. So there is a quest there where they want you to go check up on them. But they're still hovering above the planet. And no matter what dialogue option I check, they're like, oh, yeah, I guess we should get going then. And then they don't. I've
run into a couple quest bugs now that I'm thinking about it. I ran into one where I had to kill some spacers. Like there was these 2 different Marine groups that were at war once get attacked by space pirates. And you take out the space pirates, but there was like a ship that didn't land of more space pirates that I was waiting for. When I reloaded a couple days later, it came back and I finished it. So it might be that sort of situation. I've not seen a quest permanently bug. I've only seen quests that are like, it waits for the trigger to reset and then it goes. And that's impressive if that is the case. I'm sure there are some permanently bugged quests. But there are quests like that where they become Radiant quests after you finish them. So there's one where you smuggle drugs through the Neon City. And you go and you build... You manufacture these drugs, and then you bring them to the guy. He puts them in his alcohol, and you get money. And that's just a permanent quest you can do forever and ever. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. I wish that wasn't in my quest log anymore, but that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Like, move that to the activities log. And there's somewhere it's like, go check on this person again. This quest isn't done yet, but there's another one that'll come back. And it's like, I like that. I like that there's like a sense of life to a lot of these characters that a lot of Bethesda games never had.
It's so much better than the Fallout 4 another settlement needs your help, because that's clearly what they were going for with that game. And I get it, post-apocalyptic setting, it makes sense that you would kind of need to micromanage all these places you're trying to settle, but translating that into gameplay did not work well.
Yes.
And I think that this is a good middle ground, because a lot of the Radiant quests, they're very low stakes. They're very at most they're just personal, kind of like how my point about the dialogue options and all that, like how they affect the game. They don't really affect a lot, but there's stuff there that if you enjoy role playing, I feel like I'm using a fallacy by saying that, but like, as a person that's kind of role playing with my character, I'm like, I like this. I like being some space messiah that's helping people out.
And there's a lot of room for like being space devil also. Like you can like blow up that generation ship. You could be an awful person. Yeah. I don't know that you could finish the main quest line if you are, though.
Every time I talk to a ship while I'm in space, like if I just hail a ship, there's always the option to pirate them.
Yeah. And it's like, I like that there's a lot of freedom in that regard. It feels a lot more free than any prior Bethesda game. And so they're on the right track. It's just, man, I see where it could have been like a transcendent experience, and this could have been like, oh man, I'm in love with Bethesda games again, and instead I'm still in like with them, which is not a bad thing.
I mean, I guess to wrap up my thoughts here before I start going in circles. I like that this game, it doesn't quite open the same way that like Fallout 4 and 3 did, and also Skyrim, where there's this huge catastrophic event in the story and they're like, oh my god, we need to send you to go find your dad, or find your son, or find your dragon dad in Skyrim, where it's like, just go do all this. It's like, oh hey, you're a little weird, want to go fly in space, and then you could just go wherever. Like, I never really felt like the game was holding my hand and forcing me to go places.
I was afraid it was going to be a chosen one story, and it's actually not. Like, they kind of tease that it's going to be. I
kind of thought it was going to be.
They tease that it's going to be, and then you find out you're not special. And that's not a spoiler.
Oh, okay.
It's more like it's an interesting wrinkle. I'll say.
I like being not important in video games.
Yeah, like, I don't want to be the only one that can ever do anything, and everyone's like, how can these settlements not function without one person?
Especially if I'm in a role-playing game like this. It's like, I want to feel like just a normal dude, you know?
Like, you can't be bigger than space.
Good to hear.
You can't be bigger than space. And
which is where I felt like they were going with that. So now I'm a bit excited to see how they handle that.
It's like, I'm excited by those prospects, and I really like what the way that they're going with it, to the point that I'm at. I see where it's going, I think, and I'm like 90% sure I see where it's going story-wise, and I'm like, man, if you had done this but with more quests, and like you stretched out the late part of this into like cut the middle shit where you're doing the same thing 400 times, and add more to the end, which I know is like, oh, just add more things, but add more texture to the middle to the end part of the game, story-wise, main story-wise, where you start thinking about those actions that you're taking, and you're pondering them, and they ask you some really hard-hitting questions, and you have more than one mission to think about them before you move on and do something else. If they had done that, this could have been the best Bethesda story.
Yeah. And I'm wondering how much of this was left on the cutting room floor, because we know
it's got to be a lot.
We know that we're getting a story expansion down the line. We don't know when, but it's literally advertised as one of the premium edition selling points. Is like, here's a story expansion. It's like, all right, well, clearly something was left out, or we were sold 2/3 of a story and it's going to go somewhere else.
And it wouldn't be the first or the second or third time they've done that either. So, and I'm fine if that's the case. You know, they're never going to sell a finished game at Bethesda. That's just kind of how it is. And again, the biggest credit I can give them is that they made a functionally infinite game. They made the game that No Man's Sky said it was going to be. The question is whether the things you're going to do are going to keep you entertained forever. And for millions of people, yes.
Yeah,
like, absolutely.
It's probably going to keep me entertained for a bit longer.
Yeah, I want to go through and do all the main like side quests and stuff. I won't do the Radiant quest stuff forever, but there's something fun about exploring the planets and having like, oh, this one has 0.5G, this one has 0.2G, this one has like 1.5G, so you get tired faster. Like, there's some cool shit here. They just never really, like, there's no hardcore mode feeling that it goes all the way. There probably is a hardcore mode, but like, it doesn't.
I almost want to see them. I hate to say it, I almost want to see them take like the Fallout 3 New Vegas approach and give me durability with my gear, just to see, because that would give all of these resources that you're just over flooded with a purpose.
And it's funny because, like, so there's only so many things you can do with those resources at a point. I've never had enough because I haven't made outposts. I haven't engaged with that system too much. Mainly because I needed more resources to start them. They don't give you like a starting like quest where they're like, hey, here's a bunch of iron.
Yeah.
Make a thing. Maybe they should have. I don't know. But that would have been a good way to repair system would have been good.
I think that there's a side quest with Vasco that's supposed to set all the base building stuff up for you, but I skipped it.
I think I did that quest, and it wasn't really it's like just build an outpost, and then I named it, and I think until you build living quarters, you can't actually have it be an outpost. So you have to have built a functional, like, multiple things before you can actually let it be a thing. Which is really cool, and there are going to be people that go nuts with that shit, because it's a really cool building system. It's better than Fallout's ever was. But I don't think there's much reason for it. Like, what do you do with those resources besides sell them at a point? And if it's like, hey, it's for the experience of doing it, then cool. That's all you need, I guess.
Yeah.
We had slated this. We were hoping we'd do like half an hour, and we always go over. We doubled our length
almost an
here
hour.
because there's a lot to talk about, and there's a lot more that I'm
Yeah.
sure we'll talk about in the future. So if you've been playing Starfield, let us know your general spoiler-free thoughts below. If you're going to give spoilers, maybe put them below like the little comment fold so people don't get spoiled. Any final thoughts on Starfield before we close out for this discussion of probably multiple of this game, Trev?
Space is cool.
Space is pretty cool. I can't fly into the sun, though. That makes me sad.
Dude, why can't I land on a gas giant?
I want to do it.
That's all I'm saying.
I want to get crushed. I want them to be
Dude, just
sit on me.